I know you've been watching a lot of superhero content lately, but I'm going to recommend you take on one more show. And don't worry, it's a Netflix show, so the entire season drops in one day, and you'll watch it in one day, trust me. I had to watch it in one day for work, but I did not regret it. It's actually, I think, the only show I've ever watched in a single day. And it's some of the episodes, it's 8 episodes. Some of them are actually like around 30 minutes, which is kind of weird that they don't have like close to all the same running length, but you can easily watch it in a day. So it's like watching a really long movie, and it is definitely worth it. Now, when episode 1 started, I was a little nervous. I didn't know if this show was going to be able to compete. But by the end of episode 1, it's a little like Invincible. You know, you really need to make it through the end of the first episode to get hooked. Because at the end of the episode here, there's also a huge superhero battle. And this is really impressive because there are lots of powers on display, and there are really high stakes, and there are a lot of people involved in the fight. And here, what makes it really unique is that it's all done in live action on a streaming service. And it was... I think you rarely actually see, except for the airport battle in Civil War, and even there, you know, the powers, you know, they took turns. Here, you have a lot of people involved in a fight simultaneously. I don't think we've actually ever seen, I can't think off the top of my head of a superhero team fight in live action that's been done in this way. It was really cool to see. And so after episode 1, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good show. But as I continued to watch the 8 episodes that day, it became quickly a great show. And that's thanks to the 1929 origin story of our original group of heroes that runs through the entire first season. That was a brilliant choice. Yeah, and it's very different from anything else to have this period piece superhero story. Oh, it's so good. Yes, while the comic mostly focuses on the younger generation, especially when it starts out, this show, at least season 1, is mostly about the original 6, back in 1939 and today. And to see their characters now and then, and to compare and contrast, you know, you keep cutting back and forth, oh, that's good stuff. I loved it. I interviewed Matt Lanter, and he's a big Turner Classic Movies fan, and, you know, that helped him play his character who largely exists in that timeline. And I'm a big Turner Classic Movies fan myself. So if you like classic movies and you like superhero content, well, rejoice! Your 2 favorite things have finally combined into a mashup that is quite unexpected. You know, we've been talking about how the superhero genre is able to have longevity because they're starting to do mashups with other genres. And it's brilliant to do superheroes and classic films. But, you know, don't worry. There's a lot of modern day stuff, too, if you don't like... That's a lot of classic stuff, though. And that stuff was so good. Now, also, speaking of interviews, I interviewed Mark Millar the other day. I'll put a link down below to all these interviews. He's the creator of Jupiter's Legacy and many, many comics. And he said that while the island sequences were shorter in the comic, Daredevil's Stephen DeKnight, who was the showrunner on that show when it started out and is the showrunner here, well, Stephen S. DeKnight came up with the brilliant idea of extending the flashback sequences and making them kind of like a Close Encounters of the Third Kind scenario, where Josh Duhamel's Sheldon Sampson is obsessed with finding this island, and he drags all these people along with him. And Close Encounters, they pulled it off. They did it. It's a great comparison because that storyline in particular had me on the edge of my seat. I could not stop watching this show, even if I couldn't because I had my interviews the next day, but I was hooked. I was like, I need to know what happens. And I got to tell you, the show didn't disappoint. Oh, wow. I think the whole journey is the journey of this 1929 journey is an instant classic superhero story, live action on camera format. The stuff on the island was particularly special. I'll never forget that. It was just so good. And again, if you start to watch this show, start it early in the day because I'm pretty sure you're going to watch it in a single day as well. You won't be able to stop yourself. I mean, and even though, as I said, some of the episodes are shorter than the other ones, I still feel I got a complete first season, but at the same time, also tremendous teases for a season 2. If this doesn't get a season 2, it's going to be really annoying. And the world building is phenomenal, not just in 1929, but in the present as well. Very, very strong. So the basic setup, no spoilers, but the basic setup is that in 1929, we're seeing the Union headquarters. It's so cool. The Union's origin story, and then we're contrasting that with the present, where we see these the Union, these superheroes, 90 years later, where their ranks have grown. There's no word yet on how their ranks have grown, so I'd be interested to know about that. I read the comic, but I got to tell you, I largely forgot it. It was because it came out a long time ago. But the next generation of superheroes is, beginning to question the leadership. And so things are starting to fall apart. So what's the question? The question is challenging the superhero code. Superheroes can't kill, because if they do, how are they any different from supervillains? But then the question becomes, if supervillains start to aggressively kill, which they do, are superheroes unable to be effective against them and are in danger themselves if they won't cross that line as well? It's really interesting. Like when you first hear it, you're like, of course you can't kill. But then, it's a little bit like the revolving door, Batman versus Joker. Like Batman won't kill Joker, but then isn't he responsible for all the deaths that Joker does? But that's like faceless civilians. Here although the Joker's done a lot of damage to the Bat family, but it wasn't even him who killed Alfred, though. That was Bane, right? But I guess I think it would be like if Joker started killing members of the Bat family, and they'd be like, "We got to take this guy out." It's just really well done. I'm invested. I need a season 2, and I will be doing a spoiler review. But for the rest of this non-spoiler review, let me list my characters in order of my favorite. That's fun. That's always fun to do. And also, again, don't worry, no spoilers. So my favorite, it's close though, I loved everybody. So my favorite though is Walter Sampson, aka Brainwave, played by Ben Daniels. I'm a big Ben Daniels fan, as I know many of you are as well. He has a very strong Loki vibe in this show, not just from his storyline, but also he just kind of looks like Loki. And by the way, the de-aging on Ben Daniels in the earlier sequences is particularly noticeable and particularly well done. I was like, that's amazing. I think it's what they wanted me to have. I think it's the reaction they wanted me to have when I was watching The Irishman, but I had it here. I thought that Walter Sampson's emotional journey on the island in particular was so well done, and Ben Daniels did an incredible job with his acting. We'll talk about it in the spoiler review. There was one moment where he broke my heart. Then Grace Sampson, aka Lady Liberty, played by Leslie Bibb. She doesn't have very much to do in the present storyline, although she does get one key sequence, which is very cool. But in the 1929 storyline, her Lois Lane character, I don't care what they call her. I don't care. She's Grace Kennedy, I think her name was. She's Lois Lane. She's playing Lois Lane, and she's the best Lois Lane we've had since Terry Hatcher. I loved her in the 1929 storyline. Then George Hutchins, aka Skyfox, played by Matt Lanter. That's the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the animated shows. Now, he's mostly in the 1929 timeline. He has a very haunting of, the haunting of shows on Netflix. Also, a little Tower of Terror, the ride from Disney. He has that kind of quality to his performance. It's largely because he casts a shadow over the modern day storyline. He has a lot further to go with his storyline, but they do a really good job with him, and he was excellent. He was really good at creating that classic feel. Then Sheldon Sampson, aka the Utopian, played by Josh Duhamel. Never in a million years would I have thought that Josh Duhamel could have pulled off this role. I thought it would have been way above him, but because his body of work, I'm sorry to say, hasn't been particularly impressive. Here he needs to be Superman meets Jack Torrance. But he does it. He pulls it off. And isn't that a great combo? It's so good. He is the anchor of the show. He is the matinee idol. His character gets put through such a ringer. I was so impressed. I loved it. Also, he sells the older version of the character. I thought that wig was stupid from the advertisements, but he made it work. I was like, I'm buying this. Then as for the younger characters, they, as I said, had less screen time, but some of them are still very compelling. Chloe Sampson, played by Elena Kampouris. She doesn't have a superhero name. This character is just getting started. Season 2 for her is going to be big, and you can feel the potential. She is most like the comic book. I remember that character very well from the comic. Her and the next one that are coming up. And I thought that Elena Kampouris captured that beautifully. And Chloe she's a very upset character. She does a lot of complaining. And I think it's a real credit to Kampouris that she still manages to make Chloe very likable. And you want to spend time with her, even though that time is very unpleasant. I actually interviewed her as well, and she is the sweetest, nicest person, like really so kind, so wonderful. So that just highlights what a good actress she is, because she has a totally different personality from her character. So she very much is a chameleon on this show. Then Hutchins, played by Ian Quinlan, I loved his character in the comics as well. Now he has, obviously, as you can see, a very different look here, but very much the same essence. Fantastic job. The Power Rod, that's a great comic book creation, and it's just as exciting here as it was on the page. He's also an anti-hero, and I, again, love me some anti-heroes, so that's why I liked him in Brainwave. And he also has a very good storyline, which is just getting started. He's going to be another character where season 2 is very big. Then Mike Wade as Fitz Small, aka The Flare, and Tanika Davis as his daughter Petra. Both really make a strong impression, and not only are good actors, but they make their characters seem like really wonderful people. I loved Petra's costume, by the way. She has by far and away the best costume with the way it works with her powers. So cool. But they're criminally underused on the show. I wish they had had more screen time, and I hope they do going forward. Anna Akana also makes a very strong impression with her small role. She's very, very good. David Julian Hirsch likewise makes an impression, and while they do very clearly hint at his LGBT storyline, he shows up very late in the show. So they hint at it, very strongly hint. I mean, you'd have to be blind and deaf not to pick up on it. But they still didn't do it outright, and so I hope that they do that in season 2 as well. It's a shame some of the more diverse characters on the show are still kind of pretty much on the bench, but I hope they change that going forward. They have to get a season 2. Then as for Andrew Horton as Brandon, he certainly looks the part, and what his character is going through is very interesting, and I'm excited to see more. But he's last because I just didn't connect with his character emotionally, I'm afraid to say, with the way season 1 played out. So there is plenty more to talk about, which we will do in the spoiler review. I can't recommend this show highly enough. It is so good. It drops on Netflix today. And trust me, especially if you like superheroes and classic movies, you will be so happy. All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.